You will treat all Marines with the highest level of respect, for we have earned our place as Marines and will accept nothing less than that from you!
This is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine. My rifle is my best friend. It is my life. I must master it as I must master my life. Without me, my rifle is useless. Without my rifle, I am useless.
What's going on, all you crayon eaters out there? Welcome to the first and inaugural Jarhead Podcast. I'm your host, Trey Miller with Ghost Tactical, and today we're going to have our first podcast episode of the Jarhead Podcast. Now, this is something that's been going on in the works for a while. I've had a bunch of people over the last year or so say, man, I wish you'd kind of do a podcast or some videos talking about stories and maybe getting other people from the Marine Corps and other branches and talk about their stories and all of that. So we decided to go ahead and start a new podcast up called the Jarhead Podcast. Now, obviously, not every episode is going to have Marines on there. We're going to bring some friends in that are SEALs and Rangers and Berets and different people from different branches. But we're calling it the Jarhead Podcast because I'm a jarhead. So it's going to be a lot of Marines and guys that I've served with and others that are friends of mine and all of that, but it's not always going to be Marines. So what we thought we would do today is just discuss what we're going to be doing with this podcast, and then I'm going to go and tell some stories and answer some questions from viewers and all of that, and kind of give you my story. But what we've done is we've set up some questions that we're going to ask all of our guests, and some of them are in-depth questions, and then we're going to have what we call the pit. It's more like a mad minute, but if you're a Marine, you know what the pit is. But we're going to be a pit, and it's going to be a real quick, a bunch of questions with, what's that first thing that pops in your head when you hear this, and all that rapid response and all of that. So we're going to have some fun with those. But let's go ahead and get kicked in real quick, and we're going to go through the questions that we're going to typically ask our guests. You guys get an idea of what it's going to be, but today's going to be my answer. So a lot of people have been wanting to hear kind of my story. I don't talk a lot about some of the stuff, but some of the stuff I do talk about, and we'll have some fun with it, at least today. So the first question that we're going to ask is, what motivated you to join the military? And for me, I wish it was a grand thought of serving my country and sense of duty and selflessness and all that. But honestly, I'd be lying if that was the case. And some of you guys know this, but for me, I got into a really bad place there for a while. I was drinking a lot, doing a lot of drugs as an 18-year-old out of high school, and going to college, attempting, if you want to call it that. Really wasn't going, but it was just one of those things to where I was in a really bad place, and it was literally about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. One morning I was hanging out with my best friend, and we were we'd had some people over the last few years, that had died and were in serious car accidents and stuff. And we were just like, man, we've got to do something, because this isn't really working out. I don't want to end up that way and all that. And all of a sudden, it's like 2 or 3 in the morning. I remember we were listening to Billy Joel, and I'm a big Billy Joel fan, but listening to some Billy Joel and indulging into substances and all of that, and the idea came of joining the military. And it was never something that I thought I would do. When I was younger, I wanted to fly. I guess it's probably for Top Gun. I think every kid in America, they wanted to fly fighter pilots for the Navy, and so I thought that I was going to go to the Naval Academy when I was like 15 years old, and realized pretty quickly it's not like you can just go and sign up and you're going to the Naval Academy. There was a big process, and had to get congressmen involved and all that, and it's like, maybe not. So anyways, I decided to join the military, but it was nothing that I ever really thought of. Like I said, there wasn't like a sense of duty for me. It was not patriotism. It wasn't like that. This is 1993, late 1993, when we decided to do this. And so we went the next day. We went over to the recruiting offices and the big shopping center and all that, and they had all the branches over there. And he's like, so where are we going to go? And I was like, and this is just me, guys, and most of you that know me know that I'm very competitive. Like, I'm the guy that's going to cut your throat to beat you in marbles or something, I mean, I'm that guy, unfortunately, but that's just me. I'm ultra competitive. So in my mind, like, I always push myself, and I always strive to be the best at everything that I did. And so I basically said, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go the hardest way in. I'm going to go to the Marine Corps. My buddy was like, man, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. And I said, well, I'm going to go do that. You don't have to, bro, but if you want to, let's go. And ultimately, my friend did not end up going. He went into the recruiting office with me and talked to the recruiter and all that, and then kind of decided, kind of last minute, right when he had to sign the paperwork and all that, he's like, probably not going to be for me. And I said, let's do this. So we went to the recruiting office and all that, and talked with him and all that. So that's how it started. Took the ASVAB, scored really, really high on the ASVAB. I know that Marines are kind of thought to be as not very smart, but I'm an okay intelligent person. But I scored pretty high. Basically, I was told that I could have any job in the Marine Corps except for a mechanic. And needless to say, that I think the only questions that I missed on the ASVAB or whatever that, and all that were mechanical questions. So I had no idea. I still to this day am not any good with mechanics and all that. So I didn't want to be a mechanic anyway, so that was fine with me. So, but, did all that. But really the motivation for me wasn't, like I said, wasn't to serve my country. It wasn't for the sense of duty. It wasn't for anything except for I got in that really, really low place in my life, and I figured, well, I'm either going to succumb to this or I'm going to dig myself out of this hole, and there it is. So that's kind of my story of how I joined the military. And a lot of questions come in, and we're going to talk about this because every branch is different, but one of the questions we're going to ask is, like, can you tell me a funny story or something you remember about boot camp? And for me, boot camp, Marine Corps boot camp is incredibly difficult. I'm not going to lie. Anyone that says it's easy is lying to you, because it's not. Because it's not just physical, it's not just mental, it's so many different things that you have to be able to take in and compute and decide this. I mean, it's nuts, and you've got people screaming in your ear. You're moving a mile a minute. It's nuts. It's not easy. But I had a good time in boot camp. Now, obviously, during boot camp, it wasn't so much, but looking back, I enjoyed boot camp. For me, it wasn't a physical thing. The physical side of boot camp was not hard for me. And I know that sounds kind of arrogant, but it really wasn't. I was always a good athlete. And I was a small guy, but I've always been a strong guy. And so the physical side of boot camp was very, very easy for me. Unfortunately, for most of you people that know me, I'm a bit of a smartass. And so I went into boot camp really worried about getting thrashed because of my mouth. You learn real quickly in boot camp that you just don't talk. And but I went in there with the mentality of keep your mouth shut for 3 months, bro. Just keep your mouth shut, keep your head down, work hard, get through this, and you'll be okay. So that's ultimately what I did. I ended up being a squad leader there for a while. And I think a lot of it was because of the physical side. The physical side, I was always good at that stuff. So the obstacle course and all of that stuff and the PT and was just easy for me. And it was just, for me at that point, it was just mental of, can I keep my mind in this and ultimately knowing that they're not going to kill you. Now, I was in the Marine Corps prior to where they can't touch you. I'm not saying that it did or didn't happen, but there might have been some physical altercations through boot camp. And I wanted to avoid that as much as possible. I wanted to be under the radar. I wanted to just do my thing, keep my mouth shut, work hard, earn the title, and let's move on. So that was kind of my mentality. But for boot camp, let's see. The interesting thing about boot camp, and no one has ever heard this before, because it's not something I ever told anyone, but during second phase, we were out in the field for, I don't know, a couple of weeks at a time, a week or 10 days at this one particular thing where we didn't go back to barracks. It was outside, in the field, doing humping. We were doing all sorts of night nav. We were doing, all the stuff that encompasses of learning how to be a Marine downrange, in the field, in the mountains, in the desert, whatever it is, and living that way outside of the comforts of barracks and electricity and all that stuff. So we learned real quickly how to do all that. But we were going one day, and it was gas chamber day. And that was a day that, I don't care who you are, that was a day that you were kind of excited for, but yet you dreaded because you knew that it was going to suck. And I learned real quick is just embrace the suck. And that's the thing that we say in the Marine Corps all the time, embrace the suck. Because it's going to suck, but you got to go and just live with it. So we were humping, we went doing some weapons training or something. I can't remember exactly, but we were doing some weapons training. Then we had a hump down to where the gas chamber was. In the last probably couple 300 meters from there, we had our packs on, which are about 45, 50 pounds. I understand that in boot camp, I was like 125, 130 pounds going to boot camp. So a 50-pound pack on me was a lot different than it was on someone that was 180, 200 pounds. So, once again, it wasn't that bad. But we were double time. We were running the last couple hundred meters and all of that, and we were having to go down this little hill. And the biggest thing that they tell you all the time is to hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. And they force you to hydrate all the time. But when, the second phase for me was in like May, middle of May to middle of June or something like that. So it was hot for Southern California. And I guess I hadn't been hydrating enough or whatever. I don't know. I know that I blacked out and we were double timing, and I don't remember hitting the ground. I still to this day remember going like that slow motion of oh shit, here we go. To this very day, I don't remember the next couple of days. I don't remember going through the gas chamber. So people tell me, like, how's a gas chamber? I don't know. Obviously, I made it through. I can tell you what I remember stories from my guys about the gas chamber, but I don't remember the gas chamber. I don't know. I got overheated, and I don't remember the next couple of days. And honestly, it was interesting is basically for the next month or so, I couldn't lift my left arm above my shoulder. Like I couldn't, so I had to like push up my arm with this. So that made it interesting, but I didn't tell anyone that because I didn't want to get cycled back. I didn't want to get kicked out. I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want anyone to think that, I was weak or anything. So I just didn't say anything. It might not have been the greatest decision in my life, but I don't have any problems now. So it wasn't like any long-term stuff. But for that next month, when we were doing pull-ups and all of that, I had to, like, we jumped up, I had to do that and just hopefully no one noticed. And no one did, thank goodness. But yeah, for the next month or so, I couldn't lift past my shoulder, and it was not painful. I just couldn't do it. It's like the nerves were just all jacked up for whatever reason. So I just remember boot camp. I just remember boot camp being fun. It sucked, like I said, but I enjoyed boot camp. I was probably one of the few people that actually enjoyed boot camp. But I could go into depth on a lot of different stuff, and we might do that some of the time. But ultimately, boot camp was fun for me. Like I said, just keep my head down, keep my mouth shut more than anything else, and just do it, and all that. So, where did you serve while you were in the service? So I spent time overseas. I was stationed when I got out of school. So you go to boot camp, go to combat training, then go to your school. And after your school's over with, you go to your first duty station. And luckily I got to choose my duty station. And my choices were, there's three main areas that operate in the Marine Corps. It's Okinawa, Japan, Camp Pendleton, California, and Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. I know I didn't want to go East Coast. I didn't want to go over there. I would rather have gone to the West Coast, out to Camp Pendleton, But ultimately, my first duty station, I chose Okinawa because I figured, well, in normal life, there's a good chance that I would have never gone to Okinawa. And if I'm going to do this, let's experience all of it, right? Let's experience all of it. And so I chose Okinawa. I said, if I'm going to go over there, let's go over there and have them pay me to be over there. So I chose Okinawa, Japan, and that changed the rest of my life for a lot of different reasons. We'll go into that here in a second. But so I chose Okinawa, Japan, got attached to, was sent over to 3rd Shrig, and there was a battalion called 3rd Combat Assault Battalion, 3rd CAB. But as soon as I got there, I was basically told that I was being attached to the 31st MU, which is the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit. And so I spent the first, I got there in November, and I found out that our unit was going downrange in January. And so they were already doing their workup, getting ready for all of that, and I was behind. And so I was 19 years old, didn't know what the hell I was doing, and being basically told that in 2 months we're heading to a place to do some stuff. And so that was interesting. So I spent that over there. We went down range for a little bit, came back, went another place, and then went to some different schooling like SEER school and different things, and then spent the rest of that year in Okinawa. When I got back, I stayed in Okinawa after. It's probably I got back in May. I think it was May. Left in January, got back in May. So the rest of the time I was in Okinawa, had a great time, met my now wife. So I loved Okinawa. I thought I would live there today if I could. And jobs, and it's expensive and all that. But if I could live over there, it's probably my favorite place in the world. I really do love Okinawa, and so I loved it. A lot of people go there and they call it the Rock and all that, but I mean, they hate the Rock. I loved every second that I was in Okinawa. But I went out there and met some people, obviously met my wife and all of that, but just met a lot of really good people. And we went out on weekends and camped out. We would do scuba diving, we would do snorkeling. We did a lot of things, so I really took advantage of my time in Okinawa and really loved it. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, so I love that. So after Okinawa, came back into Camp Pendleton and was there until I got out in 1998. So yeah, it was, I loved Okinawa, and I loved Camp Pendleton. Being in Southern California was awesome. We lived about a mile or so from the beach, but I think we went to the beach maybe 2 or 3 times, like as civilians, 2 or 3 times, like ever while we were there, which is funny. My daughter was born there. So it was, I loved it, but I was kind of glad to get out and get back to Texas. I grew up in Dallas, Texas, a little suburb called Plano. But it was glad to get back into Texas. But I did love my time in the Marine Corps. Where I was Okinawa, and in Southern California, you really can't beat that, right? So I was very, very lucky. So the next question that we're going to ask is, what rank are you most proud to earn and why? And for me, it was corporal, which is E4. And I don't know about the other branches, but when you make corporal E4 in the Marine Corps, you now become a non-commissioned officer. And for me, that was the biggest one. For me, I was most proudest of that, is to reach that, because the Marine Corps, they take pride in the Marine Corps is run by non-commissioned officers. They have officers or staff NCOs and all that, but the heart and soul of a Marine Corps unit is the NCO. So making corporal and being an NCO and all of that was really a proud moment for me, and all that. So I would definitely say making E4 and taking that next step into a leadership role. So that was really cool. So the next question that we're going to ask our guests is there a story that could only happen to you when you're in the military? And I've got stories upon stories. I mean, we all do, of crazy fun times, hanging out and all that. But as far as stuff that would probably only happen in the military, so this is in Okinawa at Camp Hansen. And Camp Hansen's kind of up north of the island, and kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's little Kenville, is the little town right outside, and they got little bars and all that, but basically there's nothing there. You had to go somewhere else down south to Okinawa City or to Naha to get to the clubs and I don't know where all the people are, but it's kind of like in the middle of nowhere. And so we were doing our workup and all of that, and there was an old enlisted club, and it was, I'd been there a couple times, and it was just a bar. It's kind of like what you think of, basically like a redneck bar, but in the middle of a base in Japan. And it was just this old rundown building and all that. Anyway, so they had built, so they were getting ready. I think they had already built it at another place, little location, a new E-Club. And so this building that was kind of there in this field that was the current enlisted club, they were going to demolish it and knock it down and all that. And so I remember we were told, like on a Monday, that on Thursday night we were going to do some training, and that we were going to basically, our colonel had asked if we could utilize that old E-Club for some training, and then we would take care of demoing it. And they got approved and all that, which is kind of cool. And so what we did is we were working on hostage rescue. And this was on a Thursday night, and it was like at 10 or 11 at night. So it was nighttime. Most people weren't asleep by then, but it was, there were some, I'm sure. But we utilized it as a hostage rescue. So what we did is we had this building, and inside we got this girl who was a naval nurse there to volunteer her time to be part of this training operation. I don't think she really realized what she was getting into, but anyways, she was going to be the hostage. And so we had a team of guys inside that were being the bad guys and had the hostage and all of that. And so it was about 10:30 or so at night, and we came in on our CH-53s. Now, if you're familiar with CH-53, it's a pretty big helo, and it's very loud, but it's 10:30 at night. And so we come in right over the barracks, and people are hanging out the windows going, what the hell? And people down on the ground are looking up and like, what the hell? Who's got a fucking helo out in the middle of the night on a Thursday night? And obviously they had perimeter around the whole place saying don't get near it. It's going to be a demo site and all of that. And so no one was anywhere close where they could get in trouble, but it was just weird at 10:30 at night, having these helos run in and right over the barracks and all of that. It was pretty cool. Anyway, so we fast rope down onto the ground, and we set up our perimeter outside the building and had sniper overwatches. We had the whole thing. We had a couple sniper overwatches on top of some buildings, barracks and all that, but we had the whole thing. And we surrounded this building, and we were going to go in and do a hostage rescue. And so we go in, and we make our initial raid using different things, flashbangs and stuff like that, and working on our CQB, and all of that goes into that training. And so we were going through, and we found we eliminated the threats and all of that. And so we finally reached the room, and she was wired to, obviously this is all fake, this is training practice, but she was wired to explosives where if the chair would move, or I don't think there was a weight thing, but if the chair moved and all that, it was going to blow up everything. So we had to take our time and cutting wires. We had our EOD guys in there, and they were going through all of that stuff and training with their stuff. Anyway, so we finally get her out. It took us, 10-15 minutes from the time we first set foot into the building to the time we had her out, and practice, evacuating her, getting her with our meds and our docs and our corpsmen, getting her treated and all of that, get her lifted out of the exfil and all that. Everything was like a huge training exercise to where we practiced everything. And so once we did that, then so at that point we've got her secured, got her being looked at by medical staff, and exfilled out with another helo that came in, picked her up and took her away with the medical staff. and all of that. And then, so then we set up another perimeter way back. We set up another perimeter. We still had sniper overwatch. All that stuff was still going on. It was just crazy. And by this time, the whole damn base is out there watching us, and so it was kind of cool because we were. It was fun. Put it that way, it was fun. But the whole damn base was out there at this point. You know, it's after 11 o'clock. You know, almost midnight, and we're doing our thing. And so they came in with the explosive guys. And this was their chance for them to set off some different demo stuff and all that. But so they set the building up for demo, and so that was part of the deal, is they were going to demolish this building. So our colonel was like, well, when we get done, we'll take care of it. And so we did. So our demo guys came in and wired it and all that, and we all got back, and then boom, and that building just destroyed. It was pretty awesome. She kind of shook the ground. Once again, if anyone was asleep at that time, they weren't asleep anymore. But like I said, most of them were, by this time, were hanging out the windows of the barracks watching and all of that, or they'd come down, and, you know, people that were out and about, they were all on the ground. They were just and they were watching us do our training exercise, and this was all it's a perfect opportunity to do something like this. We're talking about hostage rescue, flying in, fast roping, getting set up a perimeter with our sniper overwatches and all of that, getting set up, entering a building, doing CQB, rescuing a hostage, using our EOD guys to come in and be able to take care of the bomb that she was attached to, get her secured, get her out, get her medevaced on a helo, and it was gone. Other helos were standing by an LZ, still had sniper overwatch, and here comes the demo guys. They do their thing. They wired up, and right before midnight, boom, the whole damn place shook, and it was pretty awesome. At first, I thought we were going to do this on a weekend because it would make more sense, right? You know, because on weekends most guys are gone. They're out with their girls, their boys, and they're at the bars and all that, so there wouldn't have been that many people. But apparently to do that kind of an exercise had to be during working hours and had to give X amount of time to everyone know what we were doing on, and it was cool. But that was one of the things that that training exercise was incredibly awesome, and it was right there on base, and everyone was watching. And it was cool. Like I said, I'm 19 years old at this time, and I just remember thinking, this is badass. Like, this is what I think of Marines when I think Marine Corps is just doing cool stuff like this. And like I said, the whole exercise, it was over in about an hour and a half, 2 hours at the most, from start to finish. But yeah, I just remember the first thing is coming in over that base and the helos, and fast roping down, and everyone's hanging out the barracks going, what in the hell? Because helos usually hanging around that area. You know, they're outskirts and all that. They don't come in right over the barracks and right in the middle of the base. And they're all like, what in the hell's going on? They're looking out the windows. And like I said, by then, you know, everyone kind of came out and they were watching and all that. We had people on the ground telling them, hey, back up. This is a live exercise. Anyways, it was pretty cool. So that was working up, going over to one of our places that we went, and that was about a week or two before we left. So that was, I guess, in December, right before Christmas, as a matter of fact. And so that was kind of cool. So that's probably the story that sticks in my mind. That a lot of the stories that we have are really cool stories, but they're not necessarily military. Like, you know, you could get your boys and do some of the stuff that we did in a tight-knit group. But when it comes down to stories that probably were only going to happen in the military, that's definitely the coolest one as far as a training exercise that I remember was doing that. So there you go. So this is the fun part. And if you're in the Marine Corps and you hear the word the pit, everyone knows what the pit is. So the pit was during boot camp, and if you got in trouble, whether it's an individual or a squad or the whole damn platoon got in trouble, you went to the pit, and it was a sand pit outside the barracks, and you could be there from 5 minutes to 5 hours or a day. I mean, they're just going to thrash you, and it's just basically you're just doing up downs and your push-ups, sit-ups, you're doing angels upside down with your faces in the sand. I mean, it was just you're gonna get nasty, you're gonna get sweaty, and it was painful. They were just gonna thrash you, and like I said, it goes on for hours at times. And so the pit was never fun. You never wanted to screw up enough to get thrown to the pit. But what we're gonna call the pit in the podcast are, rapid response. I'm going to say a couple words, and the first thing that pops in your mind is what we're going to have. So it's going to be kind of the mad minute, if you will, and we're going to do it this way. So some of the questions we're going to go through, I'm just going to answer them myself as well. So get some information maybe of my thoughts as well, and all that. But here we go. First question is best and worst MRE. For me, my favorite MRE was the beef stew. And it's one of these things where I know it's going to sound gross, but we only had maybe sometimes like 3 or 4 to 5 minutes at the most to eat, especially out in the field and all that. So I would get the pouch of beef stew. They had crackers, they had peanut butter and stuff, and they had all this different stuff. So I opened the pouch up of the beef stew. I'd take the crackers, crumble them up, put them in the beef stew. I know it sounds disgusting, but it actually was good. Then you take the peanut butter and you put it in the beef stew as well. Like I said, I know it sounds disgusting. Then you stir it all up and you basically just eat it while you can. Now, maybe it was good because I was hungry as hell and you only got to eat a couple times a day and it is what it is. Or maybe it was just good. I don't know. But the beef stew for me was the best. The worst, there's a tie. There was the ham steak was, like, I still get nauseous thinking about it right now. And there's a tie between that and the tuna with noodles. Those were the worst I've ever tasted. Now, I know there were guys back in the early 2000s that had like a veggie omelet that said that was terrible. I didn't have the veggie omelet, and I think the omelet was only around for like a year because it was so bad, but we didn't have that omelet. But for me, the worst two were the ham and the tuna with noodles. They were just, they're just god-awful. I mean, I don't care how hungry you are. Sometimes if that's what you had, I just probably wasn't going to eat. I was going to eat the crackers. I was going to eat all the stuff that was in it, but I wasn't going to eat the ham or the tuna with noodles because the problem with that is you're going to regret that a couple hours later, and it was just bad. The best and the worst place you went. Best place I went by far was Okinawa. Loved it there. It was awesome. The worst place I went, I had to go to a school for a little bit in Carolina, and like I said, that's why I didn't want to go to Camp Lejeune. Nothing against the East Coast, but I did not like that area of the Camp Lejeune area, and I went to some pretty bad places, but it sounds bad. I'll take East Africa over Camp Lejeune, I guess. I did not like the area. I don't know why. Something about it. I just didn't like Camp Lejeune area. So, go figure. I think some people that know me know some places I went. They said that I'll probably pick a couple of those. No, I'm going to pick Camp Lejeune. Favorite weapon to shoot? It's probably going to be a tie, and I know it's hard to do that, but there are two. The MP5, I love shooting the MP5, and then a Mark 19, which was a fully automatic grenade launcher, and it was a bad man. If I had to choose one, I'd probably choose the Mark 19. I mean, who the hell doesn't want to shoot? I want to say like a 40 millimeter grenade, fully automatic. I mean, it would take out tanks. And it's taking them out hundreds of yards down there. It was awesome. That was probably the coolest thing I ever shot. The MP5 was a very, very close second for sure. Favorite superhero for me is probably going to be Batman. And I don't really have a reason why. I would never been a comic book guy. I've never read a comic book in my life. But the first kind of superhero, we watched the Superman movie. It was with Christopher Reeve when I was young. But the first kind of like big superhero movie that I really enjoyed was Batman with Michael Keaton and all that. So I've always kind of been a Batman fan. Of the modern ones, probably 4. But it's not because of Thor's character. It's probably because of Chris Hemsworth. I think he does a great job playing Thor. He's hilarious. But modern day is probably going to be Thor. But overall, I'd say probably Batman's my favorite superhero. What was my first car? First car was a 1965 Mustang. And my grandfather had left a little bit of money when he died. He died when I was 13. And he left a little bit of money for my first car. He had an old Firebird that I wanted, a silver Firebird that I really loved that car. But my aunt ended up getting that when he died. But he left me a little bit of money to go help with my first car and bought a 1965 Mustang. And I had it up until probably about 8 years ago. I didn't drive it much after the first couple of years and all that, but that was my first car. A pretty cool first car, a 1965 Mustang. Really, really loved that. So the next question is if you could play out any movie character in real life, who would it be? Any movie character in real life, who would it be? And I actually wrote these questions without really thinking about my own answers. So I guess if I could play out a movie character in real life, it'd probably be Han Solo. I would get to be a smartass, get to be a smuggler with a really, really cool ship, whatever they call it. I guess they call it a ship, yeah. Really, really, the Millennium Falcon would be awesome to have. Your best friend's a freaking Wookiee. Who wouldn't want Chewbacca as your best friend? And you get the girl. You get Princess Leia. I mean, that in itself is worth it right there, is to get Princess Leia. But I think that Han Solo is probably like the coolest character maybe ever. And so if I could play out any movie character in real life, it would probably be Han Solo. And the last one we're going to ask, we ask this a lot, is a hot dog a sandwich? And to me, hell no, a hot dog is not a sandwich. And I don't care what anyone out there says. In my opinion, the hot dog is not a sandwich. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed the first episode of the Jarhead Podcast with special guest, me. But we wanted to kind of talk about what we're going to be doing with the podcast, go through some of the ideas and the questions that we're going to ask. And we did that with people asking me some of my stories. So I utilized that to kind of tell my story and all of that. But the whole Jarhead Podcast is going to be getting people in from, obviously, the Marine Corps. But we're going to bring in, like I said, some SEALs, some Rangers, some Berets, some guys, some friends of mine that are in different branches, bring them and tell their story. You know, why they joined, what was kind of their story of while they're in the military, and how did the military affect the rest of their lives? Did it help them become successful in life after the military? And what this is going to do is, hopefully, if someone's thinking about joining the military, we can give them some ideas of what to look forward to. And if you're in the military now and thinking about transitioning out, you get ready to retire, and you may have some questions, maybe some of these guys can help you learn some things about transitioning as well. Mostly for entertainment-wise, a lot of people that chose not to or were never able to join the military. A lot of people always want to know what it's really like, because you see movies and all that, and it's not always real indicative of how it really is. We train hard and all that, but most of our time was training or downtime. And how do we do that? How do we do our downtime? And so that was kind of the biggest thing. Is I can tell you from our experiences, we partied pretty hard. We had a really, really good time. You know, we worked hard, and then we played hard, and so that was really. I looking back, I am so proud to be a United States Marine. That's something that no one can ever take from me. And I know that people make fun of the Marines a lot. Don't really care. They know the truth. They know who we are. They know what we can do, and they know what we stand for. And I think that's the biggest thing, is we actually do have a creed. Semper Fidelis, always faithful. And you'll always have Marines have each other's backs, and that's something that's really, really cool. You have this built-in brotherhood, even if you serve at different times and went different places and all of that. You just have that built-in brotherhood and that understanding of you can look at someone in the eye and say, that's my brother, or that's my sister, or whatever. and you never have to worry about that. So that's the coolest thing. And I don't know if that's the case in all the other branches. I know that we're typically looked at as the closest, the most tight-knit, but we're also the smallest. You know, around 200,000 Marines is all there ever is at one single time, where you have the Army's at well over 1 million, Air Force is over 1 million, Navy's at least 500,000, 750,000 people. So we're by far the smallest, but we're also the most lethal, the most feared, and the most efficient fighting service and fighting group in the world. And there's a reason, and I know it sounds arrogant, and I don't care. You go ask the other branches, and they ask them their true feelings, who's the best of the best, and they're going to say, as a branch, the Marine Corps is the best, and that's just something that we've earned that. And I'll make fun of the Army, the Navy. You know, we call the Army the doggies, dogs, whatever you want to call them. We call the Air Force, we call them fly boys or the chair force. And then we call the Navy squids, and they call us jarheads. What they don't realize is we look at that as a term of endearment. We embrace that. We like being called jarhead or leatherneck and all of that. That's something that you can't make fun of someone if it's not insulting to us. So we've learned to embrace all of that, and we make fun of other branches, they make fun of us, but ultimately it comes down to there's ultimate respect for anyone who served. And no matter where you served or who you served with, what branch you served and all that, you're good to go on my book. And I might give you shit, but when it comes down to it, I got your back and they'll have mine. What's interesting is, you know, we'll be around a bunch of people sometimes and we're all smoking and joking and just talking trash to other guys about, oh, just a squid, or you just a dog, you just a fly boy, you know, and they're, you know, you're just a jarhead, we're making fun of each other, and then some guy that never served tries to jump in. Don't do that. Don't do that, because you're going to find yourself surrounded by everyone at that point. And so if you're ever in that situation, and you see a bunch of guys and you're not a veteran or whatever, and you see a bunch of guys give each other shit, don't jump in. Please don't, because it won't work out well for you and all that. But yeah, so that was episode 1 of the Jarhead Podcast. We're going to have these coming out as soon as we get them recorded. I've got a bunch of people already lined up, and as soon as we get them recorded and all of that, we're going to get them out there. If they do a video, there will be a video. If not, we'll do an announcement somewhere in the video, but it'll always be on the podcast services, iHeartRadio. Just look up, it'll be under the Armed Citizen Podcast stuff. So if you look up Armed Citizen Podcast or Ghost Tactical on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, Amazon, Stitcher, all of those, these are going to pop up. But we'll always put links out there to the newest episodes and all that. So make sure that you are subscribing to us on YouTube, get all the notifications there. Instagram's a great one. I love using Instagram, so check us out over on Instagram. Facebook, our Facebook page, you know, either the Armed Citizen Podcast page or Ghost Tactical. All those links are going to be in the description below. We'll make sure you get all of those out there. But that's where you'll be able to find out the newest episodes and all that. So, guys, thank you so much. Thanks for embracing the suck with us for the inaugural podcast. We can't wait to have more of them. And we'll see you in the next one. Semper Fi. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you liked it, share it with a friend and leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts. We're available anywhere you can get your podcasts, like Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're there. And also make sure to check out our swag shop on our website, ghosttacticalproductions.com.